California clashing with the federal government again. Take a look at this. A line of federal agents were met with protests and denied entry to Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles early Thursday morning. According to the LA Times, a total of 5 agents who did not wear identifying items or badges tried to pass through the stadium's main gate. Several had their faces covered and were armed. When asked, they said they were with DHS and declined to say anything further. Protesters soon showed up and both groups were eventually dispersed by police. The move by the federal agents sparked speculation about potential immigration enforcement at the park. The Dodgers took to X yesterday saying, this morning, ICE agents came to Dodger Stadium and requested permission to access the parking lots. They were denied entry to the grounds by the organization.
ICE quickly responded to the team saying this, false, we were never there. DHS later responded, quote, this had nothing to do with the Dodgers. Customs and Border Protection vehicles were in the stadium parking lot very briefly, unrelated to any operation or enforcement. This all comes as President Trump was dealt a win yesterday in his legal battle against state and local officials in Los Angeles. An appeals court allowed the president to keep control of the National Guard troops he deployed in the wake of the mass anti-ICE protests. This reverses a lower court decision that found Trump acted illegally when he activated the Guard, despite opposition from California Governor Gavin Newsom. Trump celebrated on Truth Social, writing in part, big win in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on the president's core power to call in the National Guard. The judges obviously realized that Gavin Newsom is incompetent and ill-prepared.
Newsom responded on X, saying in part, the fight doesn't end here. The president is not a king and is not above the law. We will press forward with our challenge to President Trump's authoritarian use of U.S. military soldiers against citizens. We'll talk about putting a ton of fear for the folks who are supporting the L.A. Dodgers, a large amount of the fan base based out of SoCal. And, there was a lot of questions and a lot of fear when you see that just visually outside of the stadium.
Sure. I mean, if you're an illegal immigrant, maybe
Well, actually, there have been, those who are legally here arrested. So.
And have been released once they've shown that they are U.S. citizens or here legally. And look, I will say on the CBP statement saying that their vehicles were in the parking lot very briefly, unrelated to any operation or enforcement. Based on the video, that seems not true to me. Just the fact that they were walking up to the entrance trying to get in, at least by the video, obviously something was going on. I don't know what it is or why it was CBP other than ICE. But I have no problem with immigration officials being outside of locations where they know maybe illegal immigrants are going to be so that they can pick them up and arrest them. Trump promised mass deportation, and that's what this looks like.
It's interesting that they chose to do it outside of the LA Dodgers Stadium.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they are, picking places and they're just, placing a ton of fear and what can be trauma into communities, because there have been, as I mentioned at the top, those who are even here legally arrested. And you may say, yes, well, they were released, but they were still arrested. And they are here lawfully. These are, folks who are citizens here who are being arrested. So what are we saying to people? And visually even looking at that, what are we trying to say to Americans? This is why we have the No Kings protests. A lot of folks are looking at this and saying, we're tired of it. We want to make sure that there's the lens of patriotism about American values and about who we are. That's why you had so many people come out for things like the No Kings protest, which you didn't have many people coming out for Trump's, event that he did around the same time where he had the military there outside of the Capitol. I mean, it's showing what Americans are also getting upset about. And this is the kind of actions where I think they're wondering, why are you here? What is the goal of this? And why so much secrecy?
Well, I think American values also are rule of law and respecting our country's borders and its sovereignty. And that's part of why the illegal immigrants need to go. For a long time, the answer to mass illegal immigration has been to grant amnesty. And I think that operations like this show people that this is being taken seriously. It's not only a message to people who are in the country illegally. Take the $1,000, self-deport. You'll have the opportunity then to apply to come to the country lawfully. If you're deported, you don't get the opportunity to come back. And it also sends a message to other people who would try to cross the border illegally. If you come here, we're not going to tolerate it anymore.
Well, we'll have to see what happens with it. But we do know that when we know that the National Guard and that whole situation happened, and it was in California, that there was a whole divide as to whether this was really rebellion that was happening, and did it justify having the federal government, President Trump, step in. We know that there's been a recent win on that on Trump's side, but I think that it's raised the question again, going back to, are we going to go against what the governor's saying? Was there really a ton of rebellion happening, or by sending in the troops did we inflame tensions, which is what I believe? I think it made the situation worse. It usurped local authority as well. It wasted resources.
I think the argument that the National Guard going in and inflaming tensions when there were already riots going on, people throwing rocks at ICE vehicles, burning the Waymo cars, looting, rioting, the idea that we can't respond to that with law enforcement because it's going to potentially make the rioters angrier is sort of a logical fallacy. And it was absolutely necessary. The local police there said in the early days of the riots that they were completely overwhelmed and they needed help. And I think Trump 100% did the right thing by sending in the National Guard and making sure that those riots were put down with the federal assistance. Otherwise, we would have just allowed them to run the streets. We had reporters on the ground there. They saw firsthand the violence that was taking place. It was undeniable.
The governor could have, I think, handled that before, moving into the president stepping in. And I think it just goes back to, are we respecting the states and how they can handle a situation? Of course, there's going to be different perspectives on that, and, we simply have different takes on it. But I think that it did inflame tensions and make it worse, and that you have to trust that the states can handle it, and that there should be some agreement with the state of, okay, we're going to now send in, national troops if that's what we decide to do. But it is an extreme amount of resources. So I think it's, something that we're going to see happen probably again during this term, where we're going to see national troops come in, and it's going to be potentially against the state, and we're going to see this, now get tied up in the courts, costing even more taxpayer dollars to try to figure this out. So, we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, I think it would be ideal, obviously, if Gavin Newsom said, yes, send them in, I need your help. But if he's not going to take the proper steps to restore order, then the president does have the authority under federal law to be able to send in the troops himself and make sure that those citizens are protected when their own leadership is unwilling to do it.
Well, it is worth pointing out to everyone who's watching that the lower court did previously say, and I quote, the president only allows the president to take control during times of rebellion or danger of a rebellion. So how we would define a rebellion, I think, is now going to come under the microscope.
Sure. All right.
Well, up next, Trump blasting Fox News, saying MAGA hates you. Stay tuned.